My name is Maya. I work as a communications and business developer manager at F6S. F6S is, of course, one of the partners in the EOSC-Hub. We're the largest global community for tech founders, and our main mission is to connect founders with the opportunities. This is one of our main roles in this digital innovation hub, and hence this webinar. The webinar will be focused on basically it will be divided into two main sections. Based on the needs that were expressed by pilot. My background and my relevance to speak about these topics about marketing and communications. I've been working in PR and content mostly for the past 5 years, mostly in the startup ecosystems in the Central European region, Southeast basically, and Central Europe. My main roles were, I was basically in charge for the strategy part from everything, basically both digital and offline for data-driven startups. My fields of interest include agri-food, earth observation, and in terms of technologies, I was also focusing a lot on big data, on blockchain, and IoT. As mentioned in this webinar, I will be talking about the best practices that have been shown as most useful from my personal experience, but also from the market point of view. And in the webinar, we will be focusing a lot on how to engage, how to understand first your customers, and then how to build habit-forming solutions. And then in the second part of the webinar, we will be talking a lot about what kind of strategies should you take into consideration when approaching your customers. I will be focusing mostly on the digital aspects, on the digital outreach, basically on content generation, on PR outreach, and on influencer outreach. I have mentioned a couple of seconds ago, we will start by asking ourselves how to design our solutions to be habit forming. How can we design with the end user in mind so that our solution becomes their everyday reality, their routine. Why the habits and routines are necessary? They're necessary because they're not conscious, and forming habits, of course, takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of one-on-one conversation with each of our customers. But in the end, we take advantage by making this effort. We make the advantage, and we have the customer with us through the entire life cycle, basically, of their journey, from the moment we meet them until they come to us to solve their problems. This is why it is necessary to form habits in users. It is necessary first to understand them, to understand their concerns, and then go with them step by step, help them understand our solution and how our solution can help them and become their everyday reality, in their everyday business operations. So the idea here was to ask, where would you place yourself with your solution? Would you be, where in this zone would you basically place your solution, the product you're working on, whether you're a candy So whether you're cherry on the cake, whether you're here to delight, maybe you're a vitamin, maybe your solution is here to strengthen your customer in some segments of their everyday business operations, or would you rather position yourself, your solution, as a painkiller? Basically, the idea here is to position yourself in one of these three main segments, and this will later help you understand from which aspect does your customer sees your solution, and this will later help you approach them with the right message at the right time, and of course with the appropriate channel. Next. When talking about habits, it's really important to measure the frequency. So how often does the intended behavior occur? One crucial thing is to measure the frequency. So how often, not only how often does the user, the customer comes to you, but also how often does he or she triggers the intended behavior. There must be, your solutions are complex, and there must be some one or two or three set of activities, set of aspects in your solutions that are really relevant and that could bring you a return of investment on a longer term. So it is really important to measure how often does the user interact with this particular segment of your solution. And then second thing is to measure the usefulness of your solution. So how rewarding is this interaction between the customer and your product, your solution. And in this aspect, it is crucial to continually ask for feedback. Otherwise, you won't be able to receive necessary feedback for further improvement. You will not have any room for iterations unless you listen, unless you engage in two-way dialogue with the customer. Again, you're all data-driven, you're all highly technical oriented, so you do have the possibilities to measure every interaction of the customer on a technical side, on a technical level. But on the other side, it is also important to engage in a real life, live interaction with the customer and continually ask for these kind of questions and seek for feedback, proactively seek for feedback. Next important aspect is to identify the triggers. So why, the crucial question is here, why does the customer come to you? Are they driven by some internal problems, or are there any external aspects which made your potential customer to come to you? Once you know the trigger will of course lead to an action, and then there is the reward. And the reward, this is important to remember and to have in mind. The reward should be two-sided. Both the customer and you as the solution developer should feel this sense of reward, not only in terms of the financial aspect, but also in terms of true engagement and the true dialogue that comes and that arises between you and the customer. So this should be a rewarding interaction between you and your potential customer. And in a couple of slides later, we will be talking about how important it is to have those promoters among customers. So those customers who have actually felt rewarded by using your solution, and then in the end recommended you to a friend, to a partner, or someone else who could also come to you in the end. So always ask why. Why do they come to you? Again, some questions that are quite necessary to ask along your iterations. I guess I believe that you are agile in your approach, and that you're lean, and that your development style is highly iterative. In this process, there is for sure a room to engage customers, and while doing so, not only as testers, they will test, they will see whether the solution is working or not, whether some aspects of functionalities are in the right place. You can also improve the user experience, but from the marketing perspective, from the business perspective, ask yourself and ask your users these set of questions. So why it is necessary for your customers to form habits? What kind of benefits, real life benefits, would it bring to them to build habits around your solution, to continually come to you? Ask yourself what kind of problems are you solving to your users, and continually ask your users whether you are actually managing to solve their problem. Then maybe this question should actually come first. So how do they solve this problem at the moment, and why they need you to come and rescue them? Then what is the actual behavior from the user side that you actually want to turn into habit? Is it now, of course, it depends on your business model, but is this are those logins, are those signups, are those you need to list all the desired behaviors and see what are the most rewarding ones for both you and your customer. And in the end, once you have the list with the intended behaviors, you need to see how frequently will users engage with you in this aspect, in this segment. And then based on this, of course, you will craft your strategy for further interactions with them and other potential customers. So once you have this ideal customer, these questions will actually help you in this. Once you have this ideal customer, you will then be able to further define your other circle of customers. Basically, you will be able to further fine-tune your business model, and of course, you will be able to tailor the narrative, the messages, the channels that you will be using in your overall marketing and communication strategy. Some food for thought here, and to basically help you understand what is the key aspect of your solution that triggers habits in your customers. Again, I'm talking about habits because once we understand them, once we fully understand them, we will be able to craft the narrative, the messages, the channels, and all the tactics that we will be using across our entire product journey. Again, if you have some time, I will come back to you definitely with this set of questions to help you define and brainstorm and to see what is really the key to building the habit in the solution you're building. Now it's time to change, and we'll now talk about, once we have defined the habits, or at least triggered some thoughts about how to build habit forming solutions. We will be talking about a novel approach to marketing and communications, which is not self-centric but user-centric. It's centric on delivering value, continually delivering value to end users, to customers, to basically a wide variety of stakeholders that in one way or another are crucial in delivering our solution to the market. So if one of these questions sounds familiar to you, I'm quite sure that you are struggling with at least one of these questions. Then you should definitely keep listening to the webinar. So I'm sure that along your product creation road, you have created actually tons of content, tons of useful content based on lessons learned, based on various failures, based on various success stories that you have had with your maybe testers. But what do you actually do with this content? Do you keep it aside? Or do you forget about it? Do you keep it aside for some later use? Or do you actually transform this content into useful pieces of information that will help you come closer to your potential customer? I'm sure, and I wish that you are able to respond to me. I'm sure that you unfortunately keep this content aside, or simply put it for some later use, or somewhere where it's not readable by your potential customers, and it's hard for them to reach and understand the value that you're creating and the impact that could be made based on making use of your product in real life. So content is indeed the key. I'm the promoter of content. Content is the king of marketing, but you need to do a lot of things to make sure that this content truly delivers impact to your business, and that you really feel the true return of investment when it comes to your solution. I have mentioned the term inbound marketing. I will now explain the main difference between inbound and outbound. So outbound is basically the traditional style. It's about you. It's about all of us who have at some point been working with product development, and we're happy with what we have built. And now we want to shout out loud to everyone that we have built something. But that is, as in the last few years, it has been demonstrated on various occasions that it's a quite wrong approach, and that we should change the style of communication. We should turn to customers and talk about them. Yes, you have built and you're still building your great product, but in order to improve it, in order to make it perfect, you now need to talk to your customers continually. And unlike in the outbound marketing, where we pushed the messages, both paid and organic, to media, to some influencers, via press releases and these traditional boring writings that appear in traditional outlets. With inbound, we need to be creative, which of course takes a lot of time, takes a lot of resources, but in the end, the return of investment is quite high, and you will see in a couple of slides why. The bottom line is that with inbound marketing, by adopting this style of talking with your customers, of addressing your potential customers, you will be truly able to measure impact. And why? Because you're talking throughout your marketing activities, throughout your communication channels. You're continuously talking directly to your potential customers, or if not them, then at least the people who are able to reach your potential customers. So it's always about them, your key stakeholders, for go-to-market success. You're continuously in direct contact with them, and there is no way that you can miss to measure the direct impact of this interaction. And in a couple of slides, we will see how we can create this impact, in what through which channels, and how we can measure this impact. The first steps are basically here. First, we need to define this webinar by talking about habit forming products, because this is the ideal way to start to engage in the conversation. Then we need to define the journey. So how does the potential customer comes to us? How do they find us? And how do they interact with us while testing our product? I'm saying testing because they will be in the beginning playing around to see what this solution can do for them. But you need to know, you need to follow this journey of theirs to find this ideal pathway between the customer and your solution. Then, when you know the pathway, you will be able to create the content plan. Again, the content should be directed to your customers. It should be all about them. You should be able to deliver useful information, timely pieces of information, in pieces of information that deliver value at every customer touch point. Of course, you need to promote it, and you need to promote it heavily, either through paid channels or through organic channels. But again, I'm really personally, I'm heavily focused on organic growth, and I believe, and I have proven in various occasions in the past years, that with the right plan, and if you define this buyer's journey properly, if you only work heavily on these two steps, be purely organic, meaning that the customers will be able to find you at every stage of their customer journey. You just need to properly define the first two steps, to understand who your buyers are, who your customers are, to define their pathway to you, and then once you have this, you can create the content plan with all the different both channels, both types of content that you will be able to deliver, and the promotion will be purely organic. I can guarantee this to you. If you have any questions, you can come to me via email, and even if you have already a content plan at the moment, or you're planning to create one, you can come back to me after this webinar as a part of EOSC-Hub, and I can give you some advice how to improve it and how to make the best out of it. Then the inbound media relations. What does this mean? Inbound means that you don't have to pay for media to talk about you. You just need to deliver relevant content, relevant messages, useful information that is specific to their audience. So think carefully about what kind of will be able to earn the media by and not pay for them to publish to talk about you. Then once you have the audience around you, you will be able to identify, basically to handpick all those leads, the potential customers that will come to you to try your solution. You then build relations with them and then measure the results of this interaction. But the results should be, as mentioned in the beginning, the reward should be two-sided. The reward should come both to you and to your customer. Of course, the customer is always the first, but it's a two-sided interaction, and the reward is shared, basically. Of course, now we will talk about a bit more about the personas and who our audience is and how to define the audience. And the important thing to mention before we continue is that you cannot please everyone. You cannot be there for everyone, and you cannot solve everything for everyone. You need to be specific, and the problem you're solving should be specific. And only in this way you will be able to find this right person who is going to become eventually your ideal customer. These are some key questions that you should be asking while making this persona, ideal persona. When I say make a persona, I mean basically answer these questions and make cards, paper cards. Think about real persons, real people. You can even set their age. So imagine that you have a piece of paper in front of you, and you answer these questions one by one. When you have answered these questions, you will see a person in front of you. You may even, if it is easier for you to imagine, you can even place a picture. You can put a name of this person, their occupation, their age, and all along you can do this a couple of times based on the different stakeholders that you're targeting. And you will of course have various cards in front of you, but each of these cards will have different people, real people, and that you will be targeting when creating your content. So these are the key questions that you need to think about. Again, I will come back to you to help you answer these questions and to help you understand who your ideal persona is. Then, what are the stages that the person, that your potential customer is going through when thinking about your product? First of all, they don't think about you at all. You need, this is why the inbound is about the customers, making them think about you. So the first step would be to create awareness. So if you have, again, this should have been two-way interaction between us, and it would be easier if I knew who is on the other side, so that we can ask these questions and have different examples in front of us. But in general, the first step would be to create awareness. And creating awareness, this basically means, to put it simply, making them aware of the problem they have. For example, I had in the past, I was working with a product which was an agricultural insurance solution. It and some weather data with the blockchain component inside. It has a really specific customer in mind. It targets agricultural insurance companies, and it is actually one of the product is being built even at the moment as a part of Horizon 2020 project, but it's a highly commercially oriented. So in this awareness stage, what we have done is actually talking with the agricultural insurance representatives, from managers to CEOs across different regions, from Greece, Serbia, Spain, this South Europe mostly. So we have been talking with the various stakeholder groups, stakeholder representatives, asking them really a set of questions that are oriented towards them. We have not been talking about our solution and what we are building. We only wanted to know about their problem. We wanted to create awareness in them that they do have the problem, and we were brainstorming about the potential solution. Only the potential solution comes in the end, where we mentioned that we are building something in the moment. Would you like to stay in touch with us? We would like to engage you as a lighthouse customer, and we will be able to test this solution and to see how or maybe or how to prove basically whether this kind of solution that we come together can actually help you. So by asking the questions, we have been able to create awareness of the problem, and we have even extracted some basic functionalities that ourselves have not been able to come up with in the past when designing, and this set of functionalities that came out from the users actually were embedded in the end in the final outcome, in the final product. And now it is being tested with the solution. And then in the consideration stage, so we're moving from this initial group that we have been talking about. I'm taking again this example with agricultural insurance companies. Again, these are traditional companies. These are large players, mostly spread across countries with different branches in different countries, and they're very hard to reach. And you have this novel solution with weather that combines weather data, that combines post and pre-harvest estimation. And on top of that, it also includes the blockchain component. So you have this complex technology that with various components that independently you have been able to show that they work. But now you have to make these traditional big players, you have to make them take into consideration your product. Now you imagine how complex are the processes of agricultural insurance, and how basically it is very difficult to change anything in such a traditional sector. Agriculture in itself is a traditional sector, but agriculture insurance, you have this financial aspect, and financial institutions organized in a quite complex way, that are highly risk averse and are not likely to change their habits that have been being built for years. Now, in this, to make them even consider talking with you, and to make them consider piloting your solution in their real life operation, of course, takes time. But the key to success here in this stage, when you need to approach them and to make them try the solution, again, I'm sure that you're building highly complex solutions with lots of components, and that they can deliver impact, and that you have proven on various stages that it really delivers impact. Now you need to talk to your potential customer, regardless of how complex their everyday processes are. You need to demonstrate both on paper and in written form, both in field, in practice, that this solution can help them. At this stage, you need to be creative. You need to come up with various growth hacking tactics, from videos to interviews to podcasts. You need to be everywhere, and you need to be persistent in your efforts. But okay, when you have passed this consideration stage, now when they are when these decision makers, I'm not sure whether you are targeting B2C or B2B, but in case of B2B, in case that you have passed this consideration stage, now that you have them on your side, these decision makers, how do you actually make them sign this, not contract, but a trial, confirmation that they will participate in your trials, in your tests? How do you actually get this signature? How do you get this actual approval from them? Again, you need to be persistent, and you need to be friends with them. This is the keyword. Be friends with them, talk to them on an everyday basis, invite them to your events, invite them to wherever you are, wherever the occasion occurs, to talk to them, and maybe even bring them to a pilot site to show them how it works. And this will definitely trigger the final decision on their side. So it is only in this very last push that they will be able to approve and to confirm that they are really interested to test your product, to buy your product, whatever your stage at the moment is. Again, I was expecting that we would be able to talk, so that this should be interactive, but I hope that with this example of blockchain-based insurance product, I have been able to demonstrate how the 3 stages that we have been going through in the past, and it actually works. Now this product has a group of lighthouse customers. This group is growing based on the success stories. So we have a number of, there are a number of trial customers. The insurance companies, they are testing the product, and with each success stories, the product is being able to bring further potential customers, and it's an infinite loop. I mean, this will continue to grow as long as you're able to show the success stories, as long as you're able to show the real impact for the everyday business operations of your target customers. Okay, and now we will go a step further and actually talk about how do customers come to you. We have mentioned that inbound is about the customers. We have mentioned that with inbound, you're able to bring the potential customers, and not only them, you're able to bring a wide set of stakeholders to you organically. You're even able to bring media to you without paying to them. But how? The key here are the keywords. When designing your marketing strategy, when designing your content that you will be distributing through your channels, you have to think to go back actually to the question that we have asked in the beginning, and think how your customers can find you. So what are the keywords that they will be using in order to find you? First, start with the problem. Any problem that can summarize your solution. It should be really a short and concise list of keywords. Don't go too broad. And of course, you can also set the budget for this. Not only for, I'm not talking about the paid keywords on search engines. I talk about investing in your marketing team, because you will need a marketing team in order to do this. You cannot, a technical person cannot do this because they are too busy with their own work. So you really need to have a dedicated marketing team coming up with your marketing strategy, and everything begins with these core words, actually by asking the questions, and these questions will lead you to the keywords that define your solution in the best way. So think how, what would the potential customer type into search engine in order to find you. Again, we can discuss this over email. In case you have any questions, please let me know. I will be more than happy to help you define these keywords and set further steps for your marketing strategy. With respect to the channels depend on the buyer's journey. Not every channel is the best for every type of content. In order to choose the channel, the appropriate channel for your content, you have to think about the stage where your customer is. And these are some statistics that are actually, even from my experience, are correct. So in this awareness, in the step one, when there is this awareness generation among your customers, when they are thinking about the problem, when they are becoming aware of of how big the problem is, and when they are starting to realize that they need to change their current habits and form new ones, you need to invest a lot in content marketing. So blogs, newsrooms, whatever you call them, white papers, long form blog posts. You need to help them with content. You need to make them aware of the problem, and you need to guide them through this awareness stage until they come to the step 2, and then they will be able to evaluate options. Don't be afraid to compare yourself to your competitors. Create a landing page through which you will be able to list various features of your product and the features of the competitors' products, and help the customer evaluate different options. On them to compare different solutions on your own channel will actually, even if they are not able to decide and when the options are almost equal, which I'm sure is the case, by helping them evaluate the different options on your own channel, on your own site, on your own landing page, they will eventually come back to you because you help them. You provided them with valuable information. You help them understand various options that they have, and the decision will be on you. This is for sure. For this, apart from the landing pages, you need to focus a lot on white papers that are basically the success stories that you have had with your first customers, with your first testers, with the pilots and trials that you have had so far. Invest in this. When I say invest, I mean invest the resources of your team, invest your time, help your teams, the marketing and tech teams to work together and devise and craft these white papers, even tech guides, and of course videos are here really useful for those potential customers that do not have so much time to read long form content. Then when it comes to those customers that might have some doubts, the video is the right option. This is the time now when you need to really resolve the doubts that they might have. Talk in person. If you're the CEO, you can present yourself in talk directly to your customers, make them see who you are. Make them friends with you and explain how you can help them. Be for them, and they will be friends with you in the end. Again, when it comes to when you have resolved all their concerns through videos, to maybe live podcasts, through all of these one-on-one interactions, you will be able to make the deal. In other words, you will be able to influence the final decision of your customer. And it is at this stage that you need to provide detailed guidances, detailed guidelines, guides, either in the form of, in a written form or in a video form, or by sending one of your tech persons directly to them to help them on board on your product. Again, think carefully about the different steps in which your potential customer is. Not necessarily every customer comes through all of these 4 steps. One customer can only come in step 4 when they're already aware of the previous 3 steps. They didn't need any help from you. They just want you. But there are some customers that will need guidance throughout this whole funnel, and be there for them. Make them aware that you're here to help them, and that you're on their side, and that you do have the resources to help them solve the solution. And in the end, the reward is on both sides, on the side of you as the product developer, and on the side of the potential customer. Now, when it comes to the conversation with the customers, this part shows a brief overview of how the ideal path should look like. You should be able to respond when they request a certain piece of information. You should be able to respond at least within 24 hours. The earlier, the better. Your representatives, it doesn't have to be the sales representative. It can be you or someone from your tech team or someone from your marketing team. It depends on how big the team is. Should be able to start the conversation with this potential customer who has requested the information. And then this person should be able to guide them throughout the decision-making process. And again, it's all about the customer and understanding what needs them solve the problem. Again, to repeat, the noise of the groundbreaking, game-changing products and solutions for various verticals and various markets. But you don't have to talk about how game-changing you are. It might even frighten up your customer. Talk about them, talk about what they really need to know. You don't have to go into too many details on the first contact with the customer. Just help them understand their problem and how you can help them in the process. Of course, you don't have to don't be too pushy. Don't be too salesy. It's time to change the approach to go inbound rather than outbound, which is really heavy, aggressively self-promotional. No, here it's the time to think about the audience, to nurture them towards long-term decision making. Now, when it comes to media relations, I have mentioned that you don't have to pay in order to appear in the media. On the first step would be again to create valuable content that is I wouldn't say generic, but the content that you create across different channels should be relevant for different target market. So be valuable and make them come to you. The media, nowadays, especially there are lots of them, and they see content. There is too much noise, and the traditional journalist doesn't have time to go through all the different novelties that have been arising especially in the past couple of years. So make them reshare, repost your content. In this way, and only this you will be able to do if you create valuable content. So the first thing is to do your research first and be creative with your outreach approach. Again, I can help you in this process as a part of the EOSC-Hub. Come back to me after the webinar, and we can talk about your current approach and how you can further improve it. Of course, no one likes spam, junk emails, and don't overdo it. When you reach to media, you can do a couple of follow-ups, and you can try different approaches. But in the end, if you don't receive any reply, you just stop and you rethink your strategy and you rethink who are you targeting. Maybe you're targeting the wrong media. Of course, create remarkable content. By remarkable, I mean research-based. I mean content which delivers impact, which shows impact of your solution across a number of sectors, both in economical aspects, both in environmental aspects, and on a society as a whole. Do use emotion. People like emotion. Help them understand how your solution can help various stakeholder groups. How can it create impact on your target market? Of course, I'm not talking only about the economical aspects, but also on environmental and social aspects. By emotion, I also mean you can always use a touch of personal note to add, especially if you're a founder with a background, with a personal background in the market that you're targeting. For example, in agriculture, maybe you're in the past I have seen this approach. more often are the founders from this particular background, and that for which they are now building their products. So use these personal stories to transmit, and the media will come to you, that's for sure. Of course, the media is not the only outreach that you should be able to use. You need to invest in your own content and in your own channels. Of course, you should be able to make it easy for the journalists to get in touch with you. Always have ready press release, always have ready the content to deliver. And if you have time, it is really advisable to adjust the content that you are delivering to journalists to the paper that will publish, to the media that will publish the content in the end. So always do some adjustments, and in this way you're demonstrating that you pay particular attention to this particular journalist, and that you really appreciate the effort that they are doing in order to publish the news about you. And once they do publish the news about you, reshare, say thank you, and be appreciative of the work that they have done for you. Again, we have been talking a lot about these steps on how to attract, or how to make them aware of the problem, how to basically guide the customer, the potential customers, from decision making to from evaluating different options to decision making, but the emphasis in the end should be on the delight, on the award, for both the customer and you. Only if you're able to invoke delight, your customer will bring you other customers who are complete strangers, and then this is again an infinite loop. And you will continually be able to bring, to have new leads to nurture through decision making until they form a truly habits and true routines around your product in their everyday business operations. Another important aspect is the context in which you're operating. You need to be aware of who is the decision maker in the target stakeholder that you're targeting. If you're B2B especially, even if you're I don't know, agricultural holdings, there are nuances that you need to be aware of. If you're in this particular example, the decision maker is not a young farmer, but the more experienced farmer. But in the case of B2B, as mentioned, there are different levels, different tiers, that you need maybe even to approach all of them, to pass all of them in order to find the real decision maker in the target group that you're addressing. So always be aware of the context, always be aware of who the decision maker is, where you can find them, and when, on what occasions, when is the best time to approach them. Then content management. It's not only about creating countless pieces of content, it's about creating relevant content and delivering it with the right frequency, at the right time, at the right through the right channels. It doesn't mean that your content should be the same across all of your channels. No, you should adapt your content to each channel that you are using. And of course, if possible, do this automation in terms of you can repost, you can reschedule, you can easy the work for you, but always be aware of the nuances between different channels that you're using. And in the end, we come to the measuring everything that you're doing. Measuring interactions with the customers. In this aspect, it's again important to come back to the questions that we posed in the beginning regarding the habit forming and the routine forming in your customers. So always ask the questions, then extract the feedback, build, measure, and learn. It's a continuous process. You will never stop doing this, but it's really crucial to extract the feedback. And even this feedback, it can help you on two sides. It can help you, of course, improve and fine-tune the product. But on the other hand, it can help you understand the concerns that your potential customers can have, and based on this feedback, you can actually create content. If a customer asks you a piece of question, you can always generate a blog post around or a video around this question. And in this way, you're showing that you're indeed appreciating their interest in you, and on the other hand, you're able to deliver value to them. And it doesn't cost anything. It's actually user-generated content, since it's suggested by the user, and it only takes you an hour or two to answer in a form of a blog, or to shoot a video. For that, you need even less time. Of course, when it comes to measuring, the criteria and the KPIs are quite complex and quite depend on who you are. But there are some crucial steps that each of us needs to go through, and these steps are basically the same for everyone. You need to identify your KPIs early. You need to predict things in advance, and monitor what's going on. And probably the most important thing is to make sure that your marketing and tech teams are aligned when it comes to the message that you're delivering. It is often the case that the tech team is doing one thing and the marketing team is completely focused on some other aspect of your product. It's very important that they are aligned, and that they coordinate in this content generation and your overall marketing strategy. Without these dependencies between your marketing and tech teams, you will not be able to create a successful content marketing strategy. And essential thing is the consistency. When you start with content marketing, you cannot just stop at some point in time. You need to be consistent. It's a long-term effort. You will not feel, that's for sure, you will not feel the impact in the first 2 or 3 months. It is only after a couple of months that you will be of a continuous effort that you will be able to feel the impact of the content that you're generating for your product, not only in terms of sales, but also in terms of product improvement and fine-tunings of your solution, because through content you will always be able to receive valuable feedback from customers and valuable insights from the target market on their needs, on their expectations, on their values, and what they want to achieve, and where you can, of course, help them. In terms of some tools that can help you in this process of content creation and management and of course tracking and automation, there are some tools. Most of them are free. So make use of them, make use of the available resources to cut the costs. Again, it's all about the inbound marketing strategy is all about organic growth. And growth is only truly organic when you're able to cut the resources in terms of money, of course, and of course, in terms of making it easier for your marketers, for people that are creating the content in your teams, to dedicate more time to the content itself rather than this often time-consuming processes of measuring and tracking and automating things. So make this easier for your team. Make them aware of the tools that they can use in their processes, and let them focus on what is really valuable and what can really bring a return of investment to your product and to your overall business, and that's the content. And in the end, just a brief reminder on what you should do in order to pitch perfect to the journalist. First of all, don't let anyone trick you so that you get confused. Always know what you're delivering. Always know your key message and key values. Be specific rather than broad. Ask, and then based on this answer, you craft your pitch. So always be ready to improvise. Also, it is useful if you schedule some activities in advance. And of course, you need to regularly follow up for media appearances. And this you can do on a monthly or a weekly basis, but the follow-up is really necessary in order to be able to track your efforts. Of course, brevity is key and less is more, which is not just the case. The brevity is really the key. Your story needs to be concise, your story needs to be really brief and up to the point. Again, it's about asking others. So ask for advice, let the customers, let the journalists be your friends. Of course, practice the pitch. I don't mean the pitch for investors, but the pitch for journalists and the media. Practice it out loud. Make different scenarios. And of course, understand the right timing to approach different media and different journalists. Apart from the timing, it's also important to know who are the people that you are talking to, especially if you're targeting large tech journals, large tech portals. So always explore who are the people who are creating content for your specific niche and try to get engaged with them. That would be it for today. In case of questions, you can reach me out via my email listed on the screen. Thank you for your time, and for any questions, I'm here.